Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are joined tonight by a very, very, very special guest. As you can see, the man in the middle, the legend, Le Gods.
Cheers, nice to see you, mate.
Nice to see you too, man. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Pretty good. Getting a bit bored now. I could do with golf courses opening, to be fair.
Could we all, mate? Could we all? I mean, how have you been spending this time anyway during lockdown? Obviously, you've been working still, but apart from that, what other stuff have you been doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a little bits of work, not a great deal, to be honest. So I've been doing lots of walking, which is it's been quite nice actually, because about 3 miles from my house there's a lovely little burger van on the side of the road. So I'll take a walk down there, get me breakfast, and walk back eating it.
What's your order? Is it all clean?
He does a magnificent breakfast wrap, right? So it's like a wrap, but it's got bacon, 2 sausages, 2 hash browns, a fried egg, cheese on the top, ketchup, and he wraps it all up, and it's like a little fan when you walk out with it. It's beautiful.
Make sure you eat it before you get back home.
Absolutely.
So before we go on to your career, I just want to talk about a couple of things that happened to that with today's football. So we keep it a little bit relevant with what happened today. One was Che Adams scoring an absolute worldie. He done you proud today. That was a good win for you guys away to Sheffield United.
Yeah.
The other one. I know you do your work with Sky and
not anymore.
Yeah, so you're talking about the VAR and stuff like that that's happening at the minute. And so what happened today with the Arsenal game? I don't know if you got to see that. Did you get to see that? So one, I want to ask you the penalty. Do you think that's a penalty? Yes or no?
Yeah.
The second one is, if you was a manager, what are you telling? Who are you blaming? Leno, Xhaka?
Okay, good question. So the first answer to that is, for me, I would have given a penalty all day long. I understand the excuse was that the proximity to the ball, but it wasn't as if the ball was struck at him at 100 miles an hour. What was I'm doing out there in the first place? It's been really frustrating to sit and watch the inconsistency with the decisions on handballs in the penalty area. I mean, we had a game where Ryan Bertrand gets a ball smashed at him at 100 miles an hour from about 3 yards away, and that isn't that's deemed to be deliberate and a penalty. And then you go up the other end in the same game, a ball gets punted 50 yards into a box. The defender can see the flight of the ball the whole way, hits him on the arm, and nothing gets given. And so the consistency in these decisions is just absolutely shocking. And I think the referees are so confused. I don't know. I get frustrated by it, to be honest. It's not that difficult to be consistent in your decision making. It really isn't. I was a big fan of VAR. I was very in favour of it coming in, because I felt like it would just get rid of a few of the injustices that were happening in football matches, in terms of certain teams getting decisions at their home ground when really they shouldn't be. And to a certain extent, that has helped in that regard. But some of the other stuff that's become of it is just crazy for me. So that's been a huge source of frustration in terms of the VAR. In terms of the Burnley goal, well, where do you start? So the blame, I think, goes to Granit Xhaka, because I'm pretty sure that Mikel Arteta encourages his goalkeeper to play out like that.
Yeah.
So you can't encourage your goalkeeper to play out in that manner, and then when something like that happens, have a go at the goalkeeper, because he's just doing what you've told him to do. Yeah. So for me, the entirety of the blame has to lie with Granit Xhaka, because it was his mistake. It was an awful ball. That type of football is fantastic when it works, and it gets you into good positions, because you encourage the team to try and press you high, and you break through the press, and all of a sudden you've got a really good attack going. But the downside of it is the smallest of mistakes in those areas, will get you punished with a goal a lot of the time. So it's a balance that players have to try and weigh up. And I thought that Xhaka was completely at fault in my opinion, because it was just a poor pass.
Yeah, Arteta took a sort of a stance where, like, que sera, sera after. It's like some you win, some you lose. The first half we've scored from it. Second half we've conceded.
Yeah, and that's all you can do as a manager. I think you've just got to. If you're going to play in that way, you've almost accepted before that there will be some mistakes made playing in this way, and we will concede some goals from it. But what they're banking on is that the positives outweigh the negatives, and that they'll score more goals from that kind of play than they will concede them.
Yeah. Just going back to the introduction of VAR, Matt, do you feel like it now hindered the game more than it helped the game? Because everyone was calling for it back in the day. I'll say back in the day. It's literally about a couple of years ago, or a year ago, whatever. But now, do you feel like it's more of a hindrance than a help?
Yeah, I think it has. I think it's lost its focus on what it was originally designed to do, I think is the best way of putting it. It was designed to clear up clear and obvious errors. And unfortunately, I think it's actually being used sometimes just to try and justify the referee's decision, to back up the referee's decision at every possible opportunity that they can, even if the amount of contact in a situation is minimal. And so I think it's lost what it was meant to be there for, and it's instead become almost a case of, I don't really want to make the referee on the pitch look bad by overruling him. And also, I didn't know this until probably last week. I think I read an article where it said that referees, when they make big errors, massive errors, they get deducted money from their bonus at the end of the season.
Oh,
now that in itself is not right, because you're then putting people in compromised positions. You're asking the VAR to judge on something that if he decides one way that the referee's got it wrong, he's actually taking money out of that referee's pocket.
Yeah,
that referee might be his mate. In fact, there's a good chance that referee is his mate. So that, for me, compromises the VAR a little bit and should not be the case.
Yeah. Are there any ex-footballers on the panel at VAR helping make these decisions or not?
No, I said right from the start, even before it came in, I said that the best thing they could do is get an ex-footballer in there. Somebody who's been detached from the game for a while, who's got no contacts left in the game, and fairly neutral. Obviously, he wouldn't be looking at games that involved any of his old teams. That's just obvious. But I've said right from the get-go, even before it came in, that it would be the most sensible thing to do, because you will get a different perspective of people that have actually been in the arena and know all the little tricks that go on, and will be able to spot things that the referee may not be able to spot. And I think there's certain situations where they would be really useful to take the opinion of somebody who's been in that situation. But unfortunately, I think that the referees, it's a little bit of a closed shop, a little bit of a jobs for the boys, and they don't want to be seen to be admitting that they don't know everything. And I think that's the biggest problem with refereeing.
Got a question in here from Richard. It says, on the same topic, do you feel the standard of refereeing is worse now versus when you were playing?
Good question. I would say that the refereeing today has, I think VAR has forced it to be a little bit more neutral in terms of making decisions at big grounds, when the fans were in the stadium. I definitely think there was a shift in terms of the decisions that they made, and I think it'll probably also bear out. I think there's been some studies done, and there's evidence that the referees do get swayed in their decisions by the home crowd. And that's been, a perfect time to do that experiment was when there was no crowds in, and the decisions haven't been going so much in favour of the home teams. So it does tell you that crowds have an impact on referees' decisions, and that's something that I kind of worked out myself quite early on in my career, but it's nice to actually have it backed up by some scientific evidence.
Yeah. All right. So before we move on to, we've got some other questions. They're going to be coming in. They're going to be floating in throughout the show.
I'm not sure. Sorry, mate. I don't think I actually answered the actual question, which was, is the standard of refereeing better or worse? On that, I would probably say it's slightly better, and I think the fitness levels of the referees being able to keep up with play a lot better is better. But I think if it is better, I think it's only marginal.
Yeah, I think they've just got too much. They've got too many rules to think about, haven't they? Now there's too much going in their head. I sort of said today that elite football has detached itself so far away from sort of bottom tier grassroots football. Yeah, I don't think it should be allowed. It's got to be one. The rules got to be the same at bottom level as it is at the elite level. So
it should be. However, it's a very romantic way of looking at football, which,
with the exception of goal line technology.
Exactly. To a certain extent, I agree with you, but there is a difference between playing football on a Sunday morning and playing football for millions of pounds.
Yeah.
And that's why the technology is being used to try and make things a little less fallible, if you like.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take you back, Matt, to the start of your career at Valrec. Obviously, I saw somewhere that there was I don't know if it was a newspaper cut-in or something that the club had actually done for you when you first you left Guernsey and went to Southampton. It's 169 goals in one season. Is that right?
Yeah, that was the last season I left Guernsey. Now, bear in mind that was for a lot of different teams. So I was playing for my under-16 team at Valrec. I was playing for the under-18 team. I played a few games in the second team. I had a couple of games in the first team, and that included my school team as well. So my school football team. So I played in a lot of different teams and played a fair few games. It wasn't loads of games, but I did score a hell of a lot of goals that season. Yeah, I think my best game, I think, we beat a team 21-0 in a league game, and I scored 11 of them.
Did you get a match ball or not?
No.
You didn't even get the match ball.
Oh my God! If I'd have got a match ball every time I got a hat trick in Guernsey, I wouldn't have any room left in my house for them.
And then, obviously, from there, you went on trial. Was it Oxford United you went on trial with first?
Yeah, I mean, I was at Valrec obviously from when I could first kick a ball. We used to go down on a Saturday morning, and that was the highlight of my week. And then I obviously worked my way up, and then my brother, one of my elder brothers, Kevin, went to Oxford to have a trial and did really well. Got offered a professional contract at Oxford, and then turned it down because he didn't want to leave the island. He got a bit homesick. And so the guy that had initiated, so it was a friend of my dad's, had I think he might have been on the board at Oxford at that time, or knew somebody on the board at Oxford, and that's how my brother had gotten a trial. So when my brother turned it down, I think somebody had said to this guy, actually, Kevin's younger brother is pretty good at football as well. You might want to have a look at him. And obviously I was 13 or 14 at this point. And so my parents thought it would be a good idea if I actually moved over to Oxford, because they wanted me to go and train with them in the evenings and at weekends and stuff. So obviously that would have been really difficult to do that whilst I was in Guernsey. So I went and lived with this guy and his wife and their two daughters, and went to school in Oxford. So I changed my school. I went over in the Easter holidays. So I went over at the start of the Easter holidays. So I had 2 or 3 weeks to get used to living in the area, living in the house, being with this new family. And then I started school and I absolutely hated it. It was horrible. I was doing lessons. Like, bear in mind, I'd already been at secondary school for 2 or 3 years, and I was doing lessons that I'd never taken in my old school, and I had no idea what was going on. And nobody would talk to me. I didn't know anyone in the school. It was absolutely horrible, and at such a young age, it was just awful. And so after 2 days of that school, I said to the guy, I went, I can't do this. I've got to go back home. And that was the end of my time at Oxford, really. And then I went back. I think I knew that Southampton were interested and offered me a trial at that point anyway. So I knew it wasn't kind of the end of the road in terms of professional football, and my chances were going down the drain or anything like that. So I went back to Guernsey, went back to my old school. I think they were a bit disappointed because they'd all clubbed in and bought me a nice going away present and everything. I only worked for 2 days, came back still with a present. Thanks very much. So I went. I came across to Southampton. I had the trial, and after 1 week, they wanted to sign me as an associate schoolboy, which I did. And the great thing was, they let me finish my schooling in Guernsey. So I just came over in the holidays to do the training at Southampton. And then when I finished my schooling when I was 16, they made a decision on, I'm not sure how many schoolboys there were at that time. I think, I don't know, maybe about 40 or 50. And they chose 9 schoolboys to go on the YTS scheme and become obviously full-time at Southampton Football Club. And so I got a letter one day at the end of May in 1985. With I think it was from Laurie McMenemy, just saying, yeah, you've been picked as one of the 9, and you can turn up for work on July the 1st, and away you go. And that was that. £26 a week. We started on the YTS scheme back then, and the second year of the contract, you got a massive rise, and you were on £32 a week and felt like a millionaire.
Woo!
I think it was 32. Yeah, I think it was about 32 or 35 quid a week, maybe 35 in the second year. Yeah.
And what was the win bonus? £5?
So the win bonus in the youth team was £4 for a win and £2 for a draw. If you got on the reserves, it was £6 for a win and £3 for a draw. And then you were on those wages until your 18th birthday. And on your 18th birthday, the club made a decision on whether or not you were going to be offered a professional contract or not. Now, my 18th birthday was quite early on, so I was in October. So I only had 1 year, and then July, August, September. So I had 16 months to prove that I was good enough to be a professional footballer. You know, the lads whose birthdays were in March, April, or May, they had a lot longer time to prove themselves. But luckily for me, I actually got into the first team before my 18th birthday, and I'd made my debut. I'd had a couple of games, a couple of subs appearances, so I was pretty confident that I was going to be offered a professional contract on my 18th birthday. Most of the lads were offered a 1 year contract, and I knew I must have been doing all right because they offered me a 2 year contract. So the first year was on £100 a week, with a huge rise to £120 a week in the second year. Happy days.
So during that time, during the YTS, was you, because I always hear these stories about YTS and scrubbing boots and stuff like that, was you doing all that sort of stuff, or was it just mainly focused on the game?
No, it was probably 50-50 in terms of the amount of training you did and the amount of jobs that you were doing around the stadium. I mean, it was our responsibility. We were designated with 2 or 3 professionals that we had to look after. So we would come in 9 o'clock in the morning, bearing in mind that the pros didn't start training until 10 or half 10. So we had to be in at 9 o'clock. We'd obviously get ready. Then we'd have to get the kit from the laundromat. So the club had a laundromat on site. So we had to go and make sure our pros that we looked after, we had to make sure they had their kit. They had to make sure they had so that was the shirt, the short, the socks, the pants, rolled up in a towel, and the tracksuit afterwards. And if they had any special little foibles that they liked, and you had to make sure their boots were clean and ready to wear. And you had to do all that ready to get it on the minibus. So we were at the Dell doing this, and then we had to get on the minibus about 10 o'clock, and then we drive to the training ground, and that's where we'd all get out, and we'd have to go and set out the kit for the pros for when they come in, so that everything was ready for them and they just have to sit down and chuck the gear on. So that was our jobs before training. Then we had to go and train at the same time as they did. And then once we'd finished training, the pros would come in, they just throw the kit on the floor, they get in the shower, sod off home. And we had to make sure that the changing rooms were all clean and tidy at the end. They're all swept. There was nothing left. And then we'd have to take all the gear back to the laundromat, back to the stadium at the Dell. We'd have a bit of lunch at the Dell. We might train again in the afternoon. If we didn't, then the afternoon was doing jobs around the stadium to make sure that everything was spick and span for when we came into work the next day. So that would mean cleaning the changing rooms, the weights room, the medical room, any jobs that needed doing around the stadium. We were put on them, and it was a full-on, proper full day's work, to be fair.
You wouldn't catch any of the youngsters doing that now, would you?
No, I'm not sure they're allowed anymore, are they? I think some clubs might make kids clean the boots a little bit still, but yeah, they certainly don't do the amount of work that we were doing back in the day.
Yeah, we've got usually have quite a few younger players watching the show. So, what was the period of time from Valrec to your first team debut? So I know you left at, was it 16 you left Valrec, or was it 15?
Yes, I played my last game for Valrec in May 1985, and I made my debut in August 1986.
Wow. See, all you youngsters watching, it can happen.
Oh, and yeah, it can happen very quickly as well. It really can. You just don't know. I mean, there's plenty of stories of players who have gone from playing in, kids football to professional football very quickly, going from playing 8 divisions lower and coming up and playing and looking comfortable in the Premier League. So absolutely, it can happen at any time. And I always say to kids when I'm asked to give some advice to people who are looking to be professional footballers, I'll always say to them, because you never know who's watching when you're playing football. Yeah. So I always say, always go out and play the game as if you think the scout from your favourite club is watching you. If you take that attitude into your game, you'll be surprised just what levels you can reach.
You just sorted out my first team talk when we come back.
Talking about boots, we've got a good question here from Carol. Shout out to Carol, who watches a lot. She says, whose boots did you clean on your white test, and did you get a good Christmas bonus?
Yeah, that's a good question. The Christmas bonuses, I was unfortunate. I think I had a couple of tight pros back in the day. So, and I really shouldn't say that when I tell you what names I'm going to tell you, because if I bumped into him, he would probably still beat me up. So when I first went to Southampton, I cleaned Joe Jordan's boots.
Oh, yeah, don't say anymore.
Yeah. So, he wasn't the most generous bloke at Christmas, I've got to be honest. I also cleaned David Armstrong's boots, and also a little Irish fella called Eamon Collins, who didn't quite make it at Southampton. So they were the 3 that I kind of looked after in my time there as an apprentice.
Right, so talk us about this debut. What was going through your mind? How was you feeling? Who was it against? How many did you notch?
So my first appearance for Southampton's first team was as a sub. So we went and played Norwich City at Carrow Road. It was like 3 games into the 86-87 season. I think we'd had a bit of a shock at the first 2 games, and Chris called me into the squad for this game away at Norwich, and I'm sat on the bench. Now, I think there was only 1 substitute in those days. So, it was actually quite an achievement to get on the bench. It wasn't like you got 7 or 8 substitutes from. So I was chosen to sit on the bench in this game, and we were losing 3-2 with about 15 minutes to go, and Chris Nichols sent me on, and I came on and I changed the game, and we lost 4-3. So that was on the Saturday, and on the Monday morning I got called into Chris Nichols' office. And that's never normally a great sign as a footballer. You get called in the gaffer's office first thing on a Monday. It's like, oh, that's what's going on here. And so I was walking up there a bit apprehensive, and I needn't have been, because he went, look, he said, we're playing Spurs tomorrow night. He said, and you're going to be starting the game. He said, I'm sticking you out on the right wing, and you will be starting the game. And it was great of him to do that, because what it meant was, and the reason why he did it is I then had time to phone my family back in Guernsey, and they had just enough time to organise flights and things to come and watch my debut, because none of them were at the Norwich game. So my full debut was against Spurs, and about 23 of my family came across, which is, you know, pretty much half the Dell, and so that was a really lovely evening to be involved in. And you know, Spurs was the team I supported as a kid. You know, my hero was Glenn Hoddle. He was on the pitch, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. And then we won the game 2-0, and I played pretty decent. So yeah, that was a pretty special night. You know, a little bit nervous, but I think that was a night really where any doubts I might have had about whether or not I could be good enough to play in the top division of English football kind of went away a little bit. And you talk about the goals, but I actually didn't score a first team goal until I think the beginning of November. So that full debut was on September the 2nd. And I had a few more subs appearances after that. I didn't stay in the team too long. I think on the Saturday after that debut, we played against Nottingham Forest, and I had my first real lesson in professional football, because stuck out on the right wing, I was playing against Nottingham Forest, whose left back just happened to be Stuart Pearce. And I've got to be honest, he scared the shit out of me. He really did. I ended up getting subbed after about 50 minutes because the only kicks I'd had all game were from him. So yeah, I got dropped back to the bench for a little while, and eventually I got my first goals in the first team in a League Cup game. We played Man United. We were beating them 2-0. I got sent on as a substitute at that stage, and I came on and I scored 2 in that game. We ended up winning 4-1, and that was my first ever goals for Southampton Football Club. And Manchester United fans really should be thanking me for that, because it was quite a significant game in their history, because it was the last game of Ron Atkinson's reign in charge at Manchester United. He got sacked after that game, and they appointed Sir Alex Ferguson. So they did all right out of that, I reckon.
That's your fault, yes.
When did you transition from right midfield? Because you're not naturally a winger, are you? You know, when did you transition? Did you go to the manager's office and say, "Look, Gaff, I'm playing out of position here. Come on, really."
It was actually quite a funny story, actually, for the reason why Southampton thought I was a winger originally is because the game that they saw me playing, which prompted them to invite me for a trial, I was playing for the Guernsey under-15 team. We had a tour of Hampshire, and we were playing in a game in Southampton. And I was always centre midfield as a kid. I was centre midfield of my school team in most of the teams I played in. And this particular game that we played in Southampton, our manager of our team came to me and said, "Look," he said, "you're going to be one of the centre midfielders. He said, I just want to see who's going to play alongside you. So I want to play these 2 lads in centre midfield to see which one of them is going to play alongside you." He said, "Would you do me a favour and go and play on the right wing for this game?" So I was like, "Yeah, no problem, I'll do that." And I don't think I'd really played right wing at all. And so obviously I did all right. And the scout was there, and he invited me over to Southampton. They assumed I was a right winger because they didn't know me from Adam. And so I came across, and for the first, I didn't want to say to him, "Actually, that's not my position." You know, I was just a little kid. I was just happy to be there. So I just let them think that I was a centre midfielder. When I got in the youth team at Southampton, I played a bit more as a second striker, but still played quite a bit as a right winger. And yeah, when I got in the first team, they stuck me out on the right wing, which they do a lot to young kids when they're making their debuts in the first team. They don't really want to put you in the heart of the action, in the middle of the pitch at such a young age. It's quite daunting, so they tend to find a position for you a little bit on the fringes of the game, just to ease you into it a little bit gently. And so the first few years I played as a right midfielder or right winger, whatever you want to call it. It was only really when Alan Ball came in that I actually started playing regularly, in the centre of midfield, or just a little bit, in between the centre midfield and the centre forward. And I started playing that position a lot more, and that's when my career really took off, and I started, scoring a lot of goals from that position. And that was a big turning point in my career.
Talking of Alan Ball, God bless. I know he's a massive influence on your career, and And obviously, doing a bit of research about you this week, I've read a lot about your relationship with him. But can you just tell people that are watching now and the people that are going to watch back what Alan Ball actually told the rest of the Southampton squad?
Yeah, it was quite funny actually, because Bally came in. We were due to go and play against Newcastle away, and I think it was on Thursday before the game. We were travelling up on the Friday, obviously, and the Thursday before the game, we got everyone together on the pitch at the Down. We stood in the centre circle, the whole squad, and it was doing the whole speech. Him and Laurie were doing this double act, and he went, right, this is going to be how I'm going to set the team out on Saturday. Now, we haven't spoken to anybody about positions and stuff. And so in the centre circle, he kind of just put us in our positions. We put, I think, Tim Flowers in goal. Then he had a back three. Wanted to play three at the back. And then he put four across midfield. And then he put two lads up front. And I'm still stood on the side at this point. And I'm looking at the team going, shit, I ain't in this team. and then I realised he'd only picked 10 men. And then he walked across to me, put me in the middle of the lads that were just stood in their shape in the centre circle, put me in the middle of them all, in between the forwards and the midfield. And he went, right. He said, this is your best player. If you're going to get out of trouble, in relegation trouble, because we were banging it at the time, we were second bottom, I think, and quite a few points from safety. He went, if you're going to get out of relegation trouble, he's your best chance. So every time you get the ball, the first thing I want you to do, can you pass to him? And I was stood there in the middle of the pitch, and I'm going, wow, unbelievable. This is my dream come true. Everyone's just going to give me the ball. I was like, superb. And so it was like, it just did so much for my confidence. Having this bloke who's won the World Cup. I've got Laurie McMenamin, who's won the FA Cup as a manager. And they're both there telling me I'm this really great player and that I'm the best chance of getting out of trouble. And so I just felt like I was 10 feet tall when I walked off that pitch. And luckily enough, I mean, the whole plan could have fell flat on its face if we'd have lost the first 4 games in charge or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Luckily, we went to Newcastle, who were obviously a decent team at the time. I set up the first goal for us. I think they equalised, and then I scored the winner about 10 minutes from time with a free kick, which I curled over the wall into the top corner, and Mike Hooper didn't even dive for it. It was lovely. And so,
one, Clinton, you're a Newcastle fan. He's a Newcastle fan.
Sorry, mate.
I was trying to keep it quiet, but all right, Coach, I'll get you back. Don't you worry.
So yeah, and that was his first game in charge, and that was like, it was like people had bought into and believed in what he was saying, because what he had said had kind of come true on the Saturday, and that's how it worked out. I mean, I think we then came back. I think we played Liverpool. I think we might have had another away game against Oldham, which I scored in, but we lost. And then we came back and played at home against Liverpool, and we beat them 4-2, I think it was. And I scored a hat trick. One of them after 27 seconds, which I just fizzed in on the half volley past Bruce Grobler before he had a chance to move. And that was it. It was like, wow, everyone bought into the plan, and we got out of trouble. We drew 3-3 against West Ham on the last day of the season, a game in which I scored 2 and set up the other one. And it was just an amazing time in my life. That period from that January when Alan Ball took charge to the end of that season, and then the following season, was about 18 months. And it was just like the best period of my career. And all because I had a manager who believed in me so much that he wanted to build the team around me. And that was the best way to get the best out of me.
Yeah. Do you think that, obviously you must have been a confident player anyway to score the amount of goals you did do, but Alan giving you that extra amount of confidence, do you think you even would have attempted some of the goals you scored rather than scoring?
No, I probably wouldn't have done. When you've got a manager who doesn't quite believe in you, it doesn't quite give you that same freedom to try different things on the pitch, because you think, if you mess up too many times, he's going to drop me. Mm-hmm. Now, I kind of knew right from day one that it didn't matter how many times I missed a chance, Bally was still going to pick me because he believed in me, and that is a massive thing for a footballer to have that from his manager. And that just, I was a confident boy and I scored lots of goals. But during that period of time when he was my manager, my confidence levels were the highest they ever were in my career.
Yeah. Some of the goals you scored was outrageous. Obviously, they talk about the Blackburn goal, and just you love scoring against Liverpool, by the way, which is great. But some of them, it's just I've been having conversations this week. Like if it was a Messi, Ronaldo, players like that, if they'd have scored them goals, they'd be on our TV every week. I just don't get it. You just like having I've done a thing this week. I've put one of your goals on every day. I've said like good morning to my Twitter followers and put one of your goals on. And sort of like I'd be looking at YouTube wanting to choose one of your videos. As soon as I got to one, I'd be like, oh yeah, that'll do.
I don't put any of the tappings on YouTube.
Oh, it's mad.
Matt, when did you get the captain's armband? When was that? Was that under Bawley or was that later on?
Strangely enough, it's funny how it transpired, really. So when I scored the 2 goals against Newcastle that are shown quite a bit at the home game, when Ian Bramford was still manager, he dropped me for about 5 games, and I came back and I scored the goal where I chipped it over the couple of defenders' heads and side-footed it in.
Again against Newcastle.
All right. He scored a decent goal against Newcastle. All right.
But the point is, I've been dropped for like the 4 or 5 games before that, and Ian Bramford didn't really fancy me in the team. Do you know what I mean? So that was my first game back. So to do that on that first game back was a real big thing for me, because it proved to the manager, that he was wrong to leave me out of the team, because that's what the sort of stuff that I could do. And so that was in October, the end of October. Now, I think it was the beginning of December. So only about 6 weeks later, we're playing against Everton away. And our skipper, I think Glenn Cockrell might have been captain at the time. And I don't think he could play. He was injured, I think. And just before we were about to go out for like 3 o'clock, 5 to 3, as the bell goes in the change room, Ian Bramford comes up to me and he hands me the captain's armband. And I can't tell you how fucking shocked I was to have gone from not even being good enough to be in his team 6 weeks ago to all of a sudden he wants me to be the captain. Now, looking back on it, obviously it was a very proud moment for me, and I loved it. But Ian Bramford was under a lot of pressure for his job with the fans at that point. And looking back at it, it was just a way to try and appease the fans and try and get them off of his back by giving me the captaincy.
You've been giving the crowd favourite, the captaincy. So say, look, kind of. Exactly.
I wasn't good enough to be in his team 6 weeks earlier, but now I'm good enough to be his captain. It was quite funny. So that was when I first became the captain, and then when Alan Ball came in, I was permanent captain, and I did it for about, I think it was maybe another 2 years, and I actually voluntarily gave it up because I wasn't an organizer and I wasn't a screamer and a shouter. I wasn't really a motivator. So for me to be the captain, I had to be able to lead by example. So I had to be playing well to be the captain. That's what I felt. And for that period when Bawley was there, I was justified in being the captain of the team. And then the following season, after Bawley had left, I'd had a pretty bad start to the season, wise, and I just wasn't playing great. I was playing in a different position. Things weren't happening for me. And I went to the manager, Dave Merrington, at the time, and I just said to him, look, I'm not comfortable now captaining the team when I'm not playing well enough to justify it, because I'm not an organizer, I'm not a screamer and a shouter. And so I went to the manager and went, can you take the captaincy off me? So he did. I had got it back a couple of times when the actual captain was out the team and injured, and I'd step in on occasions after that. But yeah, that was kind of how the captaincy came and went at Southampton.
That's very honest of you, because a lot of people I don't think would do that. Maybe, I don't know. For me, I would just keep it. Like, I'm captain whether I'm playing shit or not.
Yeah, I mean, contrary to popular opinion, I actually was more of a team player than people give me credit for, and I felt it was better for the team if I wasn't the captain. I'm not a selfish individual per se.
Fair enough, mate. Got a couple of questions here. First one from Hugo. He's saying, did any of the players react with any attitude towards you when you was given the armband?
Not that I noticed, although obviously being the first one out, I couldn't look behind me to see the 10 behind me to see what their reaction was. There probably were a couple in the team who thought, what the hell is going on here?
I've got a really funny one here. I've got to read it out. So Isabella says, do you still keep in touch with George Weah's cousin? That story is fantastic. Please take your time with it. I want to hear every cranny of it, because it's
quite bizarre actually thinking about it now, given the world we live in today. Is no chance that it could ever happen again. So this guy rings up Southampton Football Club training ground, pretending to be George Weah, World Player of the Year, and saying that his cousin is in Southampton. He's a really decent player. You should take a look at him. And so Graham Souness went, yeah, okay, in you come. So this guy rocks up at training in the lead up to a game against Leeds, and he's training with us. And I'm kind of looking at him thinking, what's he doing here? It was just a bit bizarre. And actually, I'm sure I thought, he must have won a competition or something to come on the local paper, because he could barely trap a ball. And so on the Friday, we have a little five-a-side in training, as you do on the Friday before the game. And after the five-a-side, I went and take a few penalties. We hadn't had a penalty for a little while, so every so often I go and practice a few penalties after training. And so I'm practicing these penalties, and just I take the last penalty, I just felt a little tweak in my thigh muscle. I thought, oh, look, that's not very nice. That didn't feel very good, so I better stop here. Go and have a quick word with the physio. Just go, look, I've just felt a little something here. I'll see how it feels overnight. And so I go home. We turn up the next day at the Dell. 1:30, we're in the changing room waiting for the gaffer to come in to name the team. And this kid sat in the changing room. And I was like, Jesus, that was a really good competition. He's going to get to hear the team talk and everything. What's going on here? And so Graham Souness names the team, and then he names the 2 or 3 subs, I think it was at that stage. And this kid's one of the subs. I was like, what? Wow. So the game goes on. 25 minutes into the game, I go to cross a ball into the box. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, no, I got that same pain as I felt yesterday in my thigh. So I was like, oh, that's not good. I can't carry on. That's just going to get worse and worse. So I just put my hand up and went, I've got to come off. And I looked up, and he's there warming up, and I'm like, oh my God. So he comes on for me, and I don't know how long he was on for. He was on for about, 40, 45 minutes altogether, I suppose, maybe a bit longer. And Graham Souness suddenly decided that actually he's not that good, and he's going to sub him off again. So he subbed the sub. And weirdly enough, apparently, I don't know this because I can't remember. Apparently, he turned up at the training ground the next morning, had a quick chat with the physio on the Sunday morning, and then he left the training ground, and then he never turned up again. He just completely disappeared from Southampton. He left his hotel room in Southampton without paying the bill, and he disappeared. And that, honestly, was the last time I saw him. And the last time, and then I heard a few years later, that he ended up playing at Gateshead, I think, for a little bit. But I've never seen him since, and I have no idea to this day where he is. It was just the most bizarre story in the history of the world, and he's now, renowned as being the worst player ever to play in the Premier League. And the embarrassing bit is obviously I was the one that got substituted for him.
Do you like sometimes back to Souness, like how have you managed to sub this guy up?
I did. I asked him a couple of years ago, because I'd gone years and years, and I didn't know how to broach the subject. You know what I mean? It was obviously a bit embarrassing, and so a couple of years ago we were at Sky, and I got brave, and I went, Graham, what the hell happened there? And so he kind of fobbed it off by saying that apparently at that time we had a bit of a crisis, an injury crisis, and we didn't have many forward players available to sit on the bench, and he was the only one that was available. So I was like,
wow. Wow. Got another one here from Richard. He says, who is the best player you've played with and against?
Best player I played against, I think would be a toss-up between Thierry Henry, who at times in the Premier League I was just watching him, and he just looked like a man playing in boys' football sometimes. The way that he just went past people so easily was just a joke. And he just tended to kind of glide across the pitch. He didn't even look like he was running fast. And all of a sudden, he's just everywhere. So it would be between him, or in the early 90s, we went to Italy for pre-season. It was about the only decent thing Ian Branford ever did. He took us and we played against Juventus in a pre-season friendly. And I got to play against Roberto Baggio, who was just a sublime footballer. One of the best first touches of any footballer. He's up there with like Zidane in terms of how good his first touch was, and was just a wonderful footballer. And he destroyed us in the second half of that game after we made him angry and we went 1-0 up. I don't know how we did that. We were shit. But it obviously got him angry because I think he scored 2 and set up the other one in a 3-1 win for Juventus after that, and we couldn't get the ball off him. He was incredible. In terms of the best player I played with, obviously I played with the likes of Alan Shearer, who was quite young at Southampton, got better after he left. Rodney Wallace, I loved playing alongside Rodney Wallace. I think he was a very underrated footballer. Jimmy Case was in the team when I first got to Southampton. Again, an incredible pro, brilliant minder of a team of youngsters. And there was a lad called Ronnie Eklund, who I really enjoyed playing alongside. He was only there for 1 season. We had him on loan from Barcelona in the season that Alan Ball was the only full season Alan Ball was in charge. And playing alongside Ronnie was just an absolute dream. We were just on the same wavelength of each other from the very first training session. We got on very well as mates. And we just kind of instinctively knew what each other was going to do on the pitch. And it was so much fun playing that season. I think he only played about 20 or 25 games. But it was just so much fun playing alongside somebody like that. And he'll always be a name that when that question comes up, I will always say I enjoyed playing alongside Ronnie the most at Southampton.
Probably the most popular question you get asked is about why you never left Southampton. And I've heard a rumour. I know that obviously the Chelsea rumour was out there and that nearly happened. But I heard another rumour that you actually agreed to join Spurs. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
So I got a phone call from my agent February 1990, and he said to me, Spurs want to buy you at the end of the season. Would you be interested? And I was 21 years of age. That was my team as a boy. My dad still supported them, so I said, yeah, so I'd be interested. So we went and have a chat with Spurs representatives the following week, which is obviously completely illegal at that point because Southampton knew nothing about this. And we agreed a contract, terms on the contract and everything, wages. And I actually signed the contract. And what was the plan? The plan was going to be, this contract was obviously locked away at this point and was going to be bought out when the two clubs agreed a fee at the end of the season. But before the end of the season came round, I changed my mind and I decided against the move. So that contract was obviously never bought out because I was still on a contract at Southampton, and nobody should really have ever known about it, to be honest. And I didn't tell anybody about it, not a soul. And then I'm at a game. There's no word of a lie. I'll never forget. It must have been 97, 98, somewhere around there. I think we just played Peterborough away in the League Cup. And this journalist came up to me after the game, and he went, Irving Scholar, who was the chairman of Spurs at the time, right, back in 1990. Yeah. He went, Irving Scholar has done an autobiography, and in it he tells the story of how you signed a contract for Spurs. And I was like, shit, what's he done that for? He kept it a secret for 8 years. And he goes and does a book and tells the whole world about it. And I thought, geez, I'm going to be in trouble here. Thankfully, I didn't get in any trouble, and it was kind of just quietly went away. And I just said to the journalist, I've got no comment, mate. I don't know what you're about.
That guy had the Spurs. Who was the manager? Was it Venables at the time?
Yeah, Terry Venables. So when people say to me, why did you only get 8 England caps? I tell them I probably made 2 of the worst decisions in terms of my international career that I could have possibly made. So I turned down Terry Venables, who wanted to buy me at Spurs. And then obviously Terry went on to become England manager. And then in 1995, when Chelsea tried to buy me and Glenn Hoddle was manager, Glenn went on to become the next England manager. And they were the 2 managers during my peak years, if you like, of being a footballer. And so, yeah, I probably didn't get on the right side of 2 England managers at club level.
Why did you turn down Spurs, just out of curiosity?
2 reasons, really. I kind of had a long think about it. I'd only really had 1 full season in the first team at Southampton, so I was still relatively inexperienced. And I didn't think going to live in London would have been the best thing for me at the time. I was just about to get married as well, and my fiancée at the time wasn't very keen on moving to London either. So those things combined, meant that I made the decision, and to this day, I don't regret a single thing. If I had my chances again, I wouldn't do anything differently than I did in my career. I loved my time at Southampton. The fans were brilliant to me. They were the team that gave me my opportunity to fulfill my dreams of being a professional footballer and to play for England. And I managed to do that while I was at Southampton. So yeah, no regrets from me.
No, fair enough. Got a question here from Isabella. She actually talks about your England career. She says, how frustrating was it not to have as many caps as you wanted?
Yeah, I think frustrating is the exact right word. People talk about regrets about England. I can't have any regrets, because I can't force a manager to pick me to play for England. All I can do is do my best for my club and hope that that's good enough to convince a manager. So I was frustrated that I never really got an opportunity to prove myself properly at international level. So I started 3 internationals. One of those was abandoned after 27 minutes because of crowd trouble in Dublin. And the other 2 starts were 3 years apart, I think. So it wasn't really, I wasn't really given a fair crack of the whip to prove that I could be an international footballer. And that is the most frustrating part. I would have loved a manager just to have gone, right, I'm going to play you in the next 3 or 4 games. This is your opportunity. If you don't show me anything in those 3 or 4 games, then tough luck. But I never got that opportunity, and that was one of the most frustrating parts for me in my career.
Got a question here from Peter. He said, Southampton had quality players, Shearer, Razor, Wallace Brothers, Flowers, Benali. Did you ever think what could have been to win something with those players rather than Southampton being a selling club?
I didn't really, because being a selling club is what 99% of football clubs in the world are. Every player has his price, and you kind of come to understand that. And to be honest, I was more concerned about the football club as opposed to the players that were playing alongside me. So if they decided to choose to go on and earn more money and have a better chance of winning trophies elsewhere, fair play to them. That's their choice, and I respect that wholeheartedly. As I would expect them to respect my choice to actually go, no, I'm going to stay here and make sure that this club stays in this division. Because that's what it was a lot of the time. It was a bit of a scrap, and we didn't have the biggest stadium, we didn't have the biggest budget, but this was a football club that gave me my chance, and I didn't want to see them struggle if every decent player that came through just went, right, I'm off now, see you later, and if you get relegated next season, I don't really give a stuff. I didn't think that way.
Did you feel a bit like indebted to Southampton? Because you just mentioned that Southampton were the team that gave you your chance. Did you feel like you had to because of that?
No, 100%. I've always been a fairly loyal person. And to be honest with you, I think if I'd have left Southampton and the worst came to the worst and they'd have got relegated the next season, I'm not sure I'd have been able to sleep too well at night, to be honest, because I felt that it was my club and that was my destiny, if you like, and that was my job to try and keep this club in the Premier League through some very difficult times, and to get them to a stage where they could build the club and build a new stadium, which they did. At the end of my career, us staying in the Premier League meant we were able to finance the stadium down at St Mary's, and I'm proud to have played, a fairly sizable part in doing that.
Yeah. So that question from Hugo, the one near the bottom, I like that one. The biggest changing room joker.
Yeah, who's the biggest changing room joker you played with, and can you tell us a prank that what they've done?
Yeah, we weren't really a pranking changing room. We were more of a changing room that had a hell of a lot of observational humour. So we had players who would pick on the smallest thing that might be wrong with the gear that you're wearing that day, or something like that, and they would spot a weakness in you, and they would attack you for it, and relentlessly take the piss out of you for it. And there were some brilliant players at doing that down the years. So we weren't a team that would cut each other's clothes up and all that malarkey. But in terms of the wit, the razor sharp wit in the change room, it was brilliant. So the best ones for me, Tim Flowers was really, really funny. Alongside Ian Dowie, the two of them together were hysterical at times. Honestly, the way they bounced off of each other and took the piss out of everyone was brilliant. Jim McGilton joined in a lot in that as well. Brilliant sense of humour. So we had really good lads who were really sharp, and then we had some really thick players who were the ones that were the butt of everyone's jokes. And that's just the way it worked in the change room at the time. And everyone kind of got on with it, and it was a real fun time in my life, I'll be honest.
Gonna get onto penalties, because you're known for your penalties. Now, first question here from Richard says you had an incredible penalty record. What would you advise anyone who is a penalty taker at their club?
What would I advise? I would advise a lot of practice, I think, first and foremost. And I would advise them also to practice having a positive mental attitude. So being able to fight off any negative thoughts that come into your mind when you're stepping up to take a penalty. So I think those things are important. I think the mentality side of thing is something that doesn't really get spoken about much, and yet it's a massive part of it plays a massive part in whether or not you score a penalty or not. Confidence is a big thing, as we've spoken about earlier, and so practice a lot. Have your technique. I had a technique which I worked on. It worked for me. It might not work for everybody, but you have to find your own technique that you're comfortable with in training, that you can replicate if there's a full stadium of people, and you're not going to crap your pants.
Mark Crosley was the goalkeeper that saved the only one you missed. And I know he's gone on record as saying that was the greatest achievement of his career. Did you get him a trophy for that? This is a bloke who saved the penalty in the FA Cup final, so that's quite a big compliment to me. Do you know what I mean? I'm quite happy with that. But what he never fails to tell everyone is that I actually took 5 penalties against him in my career, so I'm actually 4-1 up. You know what I mean?
That's a good way of looking at it. Got another one here from Isabella. She says, I know clubs need to evolve and move on, but how much do you miss the Dell?
Yeah, honestly, it was just the best stadium I could have wished for to play my football in. I absolutely loved it. I had a brilliant relationship with the fans down there, and I loved the fact that it was so tight and the fans were so close to the pitch. It really was amazing. And yeah, I believe the move from the Dell to St Mary's was a major part in why we got relegated just 3 years after we left. I really do feel that. Yeah, it is nostalgic, but time does move on, and you do have to move on. And realistically, from a financial point of view, for the club to be able to try and compete, you do need to have a bigger stadium. And obviously, there was a thirst for it, because for those years that we were in the Premier League, the attendances were way above what we could have ever filled at the Dell. So it was obviously from a business point of view, a justifiable reason to move stadiums.
You scored some, obviously you scored some amazing goals in your career, but the one that how important is the last one at the Dell against Arsenal? Great, thanks.
Yeah, I think that was just, I don't know, that was just written in the stars. It really was a fairy tale ending that I was just weird, and I just knew it was going to happen. It was really odd. I mean, I'd been injured most of that season. I think I'd scored 1 goal in the League Cup, something like that season, and it just hadn't been a good season for me. So I hadn't scored a Premier League goal the whole season. I'd just come back from injury. We're playing Arsenal in the last ever league game at the Dell. It's obviously a big thing, and it was building up to it. And on the Tuesday before the game, Stuart Gray was the manager at the time, came to me after training one day, and he went, "Look," he said, "I know you're not 100% fit." That was an understatement. But he said, "For everything that you've done for this football club," he said, "you deserve to be on the pitch when the final whistle goes on the weekend." And that was lovely for him to do that for me. It just meant there was still room for sentiment in football. And he did the same with Franny Benali. So the pair of us were told early on in the week, and every night that week leading up to that game, and I'm not making this up, I would go to bed and I would be thinking about how I was going to score the last goal. So it was in my mind the whole time. Whenever I was relaxed and I had nothing to think about, my mind would go, right, what are you going to do if this chance drops to you? How are you going to score if this drops? And so everything, I was filling my mind with a lot of positive thoughts about any situation that might crop up. And I knew when I got on the pitch, I only had about 12 minutes of the game left when I got on. That was about all I could last at that point. And but I knew it didn't matter how obscure the chance was. I knew it was going to go in. And it was just the weirdest feeling. So when that ball dropped to me, it wasn't an easy chance. It was a bit behind me. It was on my left foot, not my right. But I knew as soon as I hit it, I knew where it was going. It was just the weirdest feeling. And so to see the ball hit the back of the net and the noise in that stadium that day was just incredible. And closing my eyes now, I can still conjure up, the feelings and the noise and the celebration. And it was just a beautiful way to finish off at the stadium and scoring the last league goal. I just felt like it was my destiny, and to the point where I think we had a chance just after I scored that goal. Chris Marsden had a shot and Alex Manninger was in goal for Arsenal at the time. He tipped it over the bar. It was a half-decent effort, and he made a good save, tipped it over the bar. And I literally could have gone and hugged the goalkeeper. I wanted to just go, "Thanks, mate, well done."
Didn't you have a corner as well? Like the last
so it goes out. It goes out for the corner, and of course I'm the corner taker, so I go very slowly across to take the corner, thinking, "Come on, ref, just blow this whistle. This is my. If you blow the whistle now, I'm the last bloke that's ever scored at the Dell." So I'm walking over really slowly, just going, "Come on, ref, just blow the whistle, mate." So I put the ball down in the corner quadrant, and I took a couple of steps back, and I was just about to clip the ball into the box, and I thought, I don't want to put the ball in the box here. Someone might go and head it in. So I waited a couple of seconds, and Wayne Bridge come all the way from left back. He was like back on the halfway line. I've gone, "Bridgie, come." So Bridgie runs all the way down to me. We take a short corner. I just roll it to him, and as I roll it to him, the referee puts his whistle to his mouth, blows the final whistle. So no one had a chance to score the final goal. So I was like, "Get in."
Please tell me you kept that ball.
It was my only selfish moment. I did keep the ball. Yes, it's in my house. Yeah,
brilliant,
awesome.
I didn't keep it originally. I didn't keep it, but it's found its way back into my possession. Let's put it that way.
Good, where it should be.
I'm just going to go back to some earlier questions. One of them was from Richard. Said, "Who was your best coach/manager you played under, and why?"
Well, from a personal point of view, Alan Ball was I spoke about him earlier and what he did for me. So I will always regard that time under Ball as the best time in my career, and him as the best manager I played under for me personally. However, if you're going to ask me tactically who is the best manager I played under, that's a completely different question. And my answer would be completely different, and that would be Glenn Hoddle. He came to Southampton after he'd managed England, and he left me out in the '98 World Cup squad. That was a bit awkward when he turned up. And from a coaching point of view, he was the best manager at finding weaknesses in other people's teams and setting up a formation that would exploit those weaknesses. So I would say he was the best tactically as a manager. Unfortunately, his man management skills weren't quite as impressive.
One here from Bill. He says, if you had a chance to play for another club in England or abroad, who would it be?
It would have been Spurs. That was my team as a boy, and I think probably the only team that could have tempted me to actually talk to them as they did. That was the only club I ever spoke to in my career. Didn't speak to anyone else.
No one else abroad? No Juventus, no Barcelona?
No. To be honest, I love this country, and so I didn't really have great ambitions to go and play abroad. To be honest, I was too lazy to learn a new language.
Got another one here from Hugo from earlier. Says, how long did it take from the first idea of Guernsey FC entering the Football League pyramid to actually happen, and what are the biggest challenges of making it happen?
Well, that's probably a question that would be better answered by my brother, who was involved in the setting up of the club very early on. I think, if memory serves me right, I think it was probably quite short a time, actually. I'm thinking maybe something like 18 months to 2 years of actually having the first idea and then joining the league in England, the Combined Counties League. And so it from memory, it seemed to be, quite a short period of time to organise a new football club, if you like, and to get it into the system. And obviously, they had a lot of success early on. Found their level. Obviously, with the pandemic, they've not been able to compete in the league this year, which has been a source of frustration for them. But hopefully, when next season starts up, they'll be able to get back in.
I'm going to ask this question because this takes me back. This is a nostalgia question. So, Isabella, again, how much did those United grey shirts really affect them?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the worst excuses for losing a football match I've ever heard in my life. I mean, how Sir Alex decided to come out of that one was quite bizarre. He completely glossed over the fact that we were brilliant in the first half and were 3-0 up at half time. And, it played really well. The crowd was buzzing that day and it was just incredible. So to use the shirts as an excuse was a bit of a put down to us, really, and didn't give us enough credit for the way we played.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, we've got a Blackburn fan in the house as well. Says, as a Blackburn fan, can you please apologise to me for being bullied in school after that goal?
You shouldn't be bullied. I let you win the game. Do you know what I mean? We still lost 3-2. That was really nice, actually. That goal at Blackburn. There were a few occasions where I scored a goal away from home, and the home fans actually applauded the goal. Which was it was pretty special to be able to do something like that and know that people appreciated the goal even though it was against their team.
Yeah, see that was the cop, wasn't it, as well? When you made
I twisted Mark right inside out and smashed a little left footer past Bruce. So yeah, they gave me a lovely round of applause like that. I don't think they're so keen on me nowadays after they kept nicking our players and I kept criticising them on Twitter.
What was your best goal out of all of them, Matt, and why?
The Blackburn one, technically, the Blackburn one for me was the best one. That was something that I'd been working on in training quite a bit. The type of shot that I hit there, the plenty of pace on it with a bit of loop and a bit of dip at the end. It's not an easy skill to perfect, and so I scored a similar one against Aston Villa, not quite as far out, but similar technique. And it was they're the ones that kind of give you the most pleasure because you've worked hard at trying to perfect that skill. And so that was my favourite one. The Newcastle goal where I flicked it over the two defenders' heads and ran around them. I think might have been my favourite if I hadn't missed it to finish. So I didn't quite get to the pitch of the ball and get a decent half volley on it.
Put it up, Matt. Are you just trolling me now? Is that what you're doing?
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
It's all right. Got another one from David Morgan. Says, what was your favourite away ground to visit and why? Again, it would either be Spurs for the obvious reason, and I scored quite a few goals there as well, which was nice. Or, I going to Anfield, I think was pretty special. To have grown up in the 70s as a football fan like I did and watched how good that Liverpool team were in the 70s, winning the European Cups, and just seeing how dominant they were, and the atmosphere that was at this ground when you watch these European nights, and it was just incredible. And so to actually then get to go and play in that stadium and stand in the middle of that arena at 5-3 and see the cop and the scarves go up and you'll never walk alone, and it was just like, wow, that was pretty amazing. And that was one of those moments where you get the old hairs on the back of the neck stand on end, and so that was always a pretty special away ground to go to, even though we just used to get smashed there every year. Got a golf question for you. You like a round of golf? What's your handicap and best round?
So my handicap was 3, and then this new world handicap system that came in last year, they decided to cut my handicap down to 1.4, which I thought was a bit harsh, to be honest. I'm not really that good. I'm not a one handicapper. I make way too many mistakes to be considered that. I'm not nearly consistent enough to be a one handicapper. My best round is 5 under par at my club at Stoneham in Southampton.
Okay, Bill, I think it's time we ask him his all-time 11. Come on. So Matt, you got to talk us through your all-time 11, who you played with.
You could give me a bit of notice.
That's you on the spot, man. Come on.
Played with or played with and against?
Okay, off the top of my head,
it's got to be played with.
So I'm going to go with played with at Southampton, because I think you kind of, obviously I'll just name the England team. That was the England team when I was in that team. But I would say Tim Flowers would probably get in goal for me. I would say probably Jeff Kenner at right back. For the oldies amongst you, I played with Derek Statham for a season at Southampton in the late 80s. He was an awesome footballer. Would have had so many more England caps if it wasn't for Kenny Sansom. So Derek would get in at left back. Played with Mark Wright, England centre half at Southampton, so he would probably get in. And I played alongside some good centre backs, actually, quite a few. I think probably towards the end of my career, I thought Dean Richards was an outstanding centre back. God rest his soul. In midfield, I would say Jimmy Case would have to get in. Ronnie Eklund would have to get in. Rodney Wallace on the left side would get in. Alan Shearer would have to get in up front. Marion Pahars, I would say would have to get in that team, I think. And then I'll be on the right wing. I'll put myself on the right wing just to get a place in the team.
Hold on. We just discussed this earlier. Why are you putting yourself a right wing for, man?
I might jiggle the shape a little bit. I mean, I say right wing. I mean, as I got older and I was forced to play on right midfield, I didn't really stay there for much of the game, if I'm honest. I didn't obviously have the pace to go past players, so I did tend to drift into the inside right channel quite a bit.
I've got a funny one here from Richard. He says, how did it feel ruining Taibbi's?
I know, yeah. That was quite an entertaining game, that one, actually. We ended up drawing 3-3 with United that day. I think I came on a sub at half time, and I scored 2 in the second half. And obviously the first one was the P roller that went through his legs. I mean, I actually didn't see the ball go in the net, if I'm honest, that day, because as I hit the shot, I actually caught the ground before I hit the ball. So I completely mishit it. And I just kind of turned away because I've hurt my ankle a little bit here, kicking the ground. And as I turned away from the goal, the Southampton fans were in the top corner of the stadium up there. And as I turned away, I see them all start going like this. And I had to turn back, what's happened there? And I looked around, the ball's in the back of the net. I had no idea how it got there. I had to watch Match of the Day that night to see how the ball had actually got in the net. and then Marion Pars set me up for the equaliser. We drew 3-3 that day.
Nice.
That's a question from Kurt Smith.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, if you watch that goal, if you see that goal on YouTube, right, the first person that comes up to congratulate me is Stuart Ripley, right? So Rippers was on there, and I'll never forget as I turned back round and the ball was in the back of the net, and Stuart Ripley was the first one in my face. And he didn't come over and go, "Oh, well done," like that. He came over and he went, "That can only happen to a jammy twat like you."
Watching YouTube now.
Oh man!
Any pre-game rituals from Kurt Smith?
Yeah, it's odd.
Not really. I didn't enjoy the. So a lot of players enjoyed the hyping themselves up just before they go out to play. So, you get to like 10 minutes before you 10-3, and people are in the change room and they're getting a bit angry and they're smacking each other on the back and they're going, "Go on!" and giving it all that stuff. I wasn't into all that. So at about 10-3, I just used to take myself out the changing room quietly, and I used to go in the medical room and just lay down on the medical bench for a few minutes before the bell went. And so that I liked to be nice and calm before I went out on the football pitch, and I didn't like to be I'm ready for a fight. You know what I mean? I need to be ready just to do my thing.
Yeah. How did the obviously when your career ended, then you went to Eastleigh FC. How did that come around?
So my mate David Hughes, who I played with at Southampton, was the assistant manager there at Eastleigh, and was still playing at that point. And he just asked me and him and Paul Doswell, who later went on to manage Sutton when they had their FA Cup run. He was the manager there, and they asked me if I'd just come down and help them out. They were in the Juice and Wessex League at the time, which was quite a few levels below where they are now. Mm-hmm. And so he just said we could do with a bit of publicity and just come and have a few games for us. Mm-hmm. So I did. I think I played half a dozen games. I think got a few goals, and we won the league pretty easily that year. I mean, I'm not taking any credit for it because I played a very minute part in that, and I never even got a medal because I didn't play enough games. Still couldn't get a medal in my career, and so that was kind of it really. And they obviously got promoted that year. I think they got promoted again 2 or 3 more times to get up to where they are today. And the club has come an incredibly long way in that time. And I do remember though the Juice and Wessex League title year, that first year I played, we'd actually won the league quite comfortably. So it was won by like March or something. So they'd won it. They were so far ahead, and so we just kind of, it was quite comfortable. We won most games, and then towards the end of the season, I only played in a handful. Towards the end of the season, Paul Doswell came up to me and he went, "Look," he said, "Andover, who were in our league, they were in financial trouble. So he come to me and he went, we got to play Andover in a few weeks. They're in a bit of trouble." He said, because I'd only ever played in the home games, right? And I didn't play away from home. And so he come to me and he went, "Would you mind just coming up to Andover and playing in this game for us so they can get a bit of a decent crowd and get a bit of money in?" So I was like, "All right, yeah, it's fine." It was only like 25 minutes up the road. So I went, "Yeah, no problem." So bear in mind, we've won the league, right? We've cruised the league. So we rock up at Andover, who are in all sorts of trouble. And Phil Warner, who played for Southampton, but he was at Eastleigh at the time, he gets sent off, right, after about 15 minutes in this game. So we're down to 10 men. We've got me running around the pitch at 15 stone, right? We've just won the league, like by a million miles. We only get smashed 6-1. The worst defeat of the season, and I'm having to stand there in midfield going, "I can't. What am I doing here?" It running rings round us, and we got beat 6 off of Andover. It was just shocking.
Did you get any stick off the other players, off the other side's players?
No, it was all right. It was all right. Most of them were Saints fans, so I was okay.
Jesus Christ.
What have you made of Southampton's season so far? I mean, obviously you're still
up and down. I mean, it's been quite bizarre to kind of be top of the league in November and then come to play against Sheffield United in March and thinking we better win this, otherwise we could be going down here. It's been quite a transformation, if I'm honest. So, but I kind of get used to that as a Southampton supporter. I know that we're capable of some good runs, but we're also capable of some, incredibly bad runs and the odd 9-0 defeat. So it's been tough.
I didn't want to say it, but you did it. I mean.
So, but that's life. That's football, and you take it on the chin, you move on. And today was a big result, really, because if we'd have got beaten today, I think there would have been a lot of jittery people who were starting to get nervous playing football matches, and that's never a good thing to happen. And I think now that those 3 points are in the bag, I think we're probably only one win away from having enough points to stay up anyway. So I'm not particularly concerned about that anymore.
In terms of going forward, like how can Southampton progress? Because they've always been known as a team that always gets in great players, Bale over the years, Walcott, to name a few, Shaw. Like, how can they progress to the next level, or will they forever be that team that, sorry to use it, but they're like a feeder?
What's going to happen to James Ward-Prowse? Is he going to stay around?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why James wouldn't stay. I think there's a chance maybe Danny Ings might leave. Which would be a big blow to the club. But, it was a big blow to the club when Ricky Lambert left, and Graziano Pella came in and Sadio Mane came in. It's just, that's the way that, the evolution of a football club goes. Players come and go and you replace them. And sometimes you replace them with better. Sometimes they're not quite so good and you miss out. And, it might mean you get relegated, but you bounce back. And that's just the joys of being a football fan. And the only way that you can progress is if you have enough finance behind you to be able to compete with the big boys in terms of paying wages to people, and that's pretty difficult right now.
Yeah, because the recruitment seems to be on point. I mean, the fact that you managed to get Van Dijk obviously before Liverpool did, and all the rest of it. Recruitment, there's nothing wrong with Southampton's recruitment. It's just, as you said, the financial situation. Yeah,
obviously they've made a lot of money down the years, buying and selling players, but they've also got quite a few wrong. We've got a few players on loan at the moment you probably don't even realise are still owned by Southampton Football Club, who they paid quite a lot of money for, and are still our player. So the likes of Guido Carrillo and Wesley Hoyt, players like that who came in on quite a lot of money in terms of what we're able to spend and been complete flops. So it hasn't all been rosy, and we have made some mistakes. Gaston Ramirez was another one. Daniel Svelbo was another one. Players that for us were big money signings and just didn't work out. So we tend to be better off buying people for like the smaller amounts, and rather than going and spend the 20 millions, we kind of seem to be better off spending the 6 and 7 and 10 millions and selling those players on for 30 and 40 and 50 millions.
Did management ever cross your mind? And have you ever been offered the role at Southampton?
No, I've never really wanted to get involved in management. If I'm honest, it's not really my cup of tea. It's a full-time job for a start, and I've never had one of them. I don't intend to start now. And I only ever really, there was only one period in time where I kind of offered to help out, because I thought I could help at a time when it was pretty bad, and that was when we were halfway down the Championship, the season after we'd been relegated from the Premier League, and Harry Redknapp had just left, and I just felt like the club just seemed to be a bit rudderless, and I thought, well, if no one else is willing to do it, then I'm quite happy to put my hand up and try and make it better. But I didn't have any qualifications. I didn't have any coaching badges, and it was just at that point where people were starting to want managers to have all these qualifications before they give them a job.
Yeah.
How have you I've got a question here, in fact, which kind of ties into my one as well. It says, how mentally challenging was it to adapt to life after you finished playing? And I was going to ask about the whole media side of things. Obviously, after playing, did you go directly into media? Am I right in thinking, or did you have a little break first? And
I kind of, well, I did my first ever soccer special when I was still playing. That last season that I played, I was a guest on Midweek Soccer Special. But I didn't really get the regular job on Soccer Saturday until 2005, I think it was. So I retired in 2002. So I had a few years where I was just, doing a bit of work for everyone. Really, I did a bit of work for the BBC, a bit of work for Sky. I was just dossing around playing golf, really, which was nice. Which was my plan after I retired. It was a pretty full on 17 years of hard work. I know people will laugh at that because they go, well, you didn't work very hard. You tried doing a pre-season training for 17 years on the spin and tell me you don't work very hard. Good luck to you. So at the end of it, my body was ready for a rest, and that's what I did. I rested. I carried on eating everything that I wanted to eat that I perhaps had deprived myself of over the years. And very quickly put on about 2 stone. In about 6 or 7 weeks after I retired, I put on 2 stone. I was like, oh, actually, that's getting a bit uncomfortable now. I better start doing something about that. And so, I played a lot of golf. I just did what I wanted to do, really. And then Sky offered me the job there. That was great. I didn't really have any plans, but mentally, my career had kind of tapered down a bit the last few years. So I'd gone, gradually playing less and less games each season. So I could see that the end was coming and my body couldn't do what it used to be able to do. So I came to terms with it quite easily. And I was looking forward at the end to just having a bit of freedom, to be honest, because what people don't understand is when you sign a contract at a football club, I mean, that the football club pretty much own you. They tell you what you're doing the next day. They tell you where you're going to be and at what time the next day. And you have to turn up and be there when they tell you to. So at the end of 17 years of having that, I was actually kind of looking forward to waking up in the morning and going, what shall I do today? And I'll do whatever I want. And it was lovely. And so I did that, and I've kind of become accustomed to that kind of life, really. And the work with Sky was fantastic. Really enjoyed working in the media, covering the Premier League. It was great fun. It was a subject that I've loved, and I still love football. Although VAR is testing my love of it to a certain extent. And I do, and I've been doing some work for other TV channels now, and I've been covering the Bundesliga this season, and I've thoroughly enjoyed watching a different league for a change, and learning about a different league, which has been pretty cool. So at 52 years of age, you're never too old to learn new things, and so I've enjoyed that. And I still play my golf when they decide that we're allowed to walk in the fresh air and not be a crime for going to swing a golf club around a field. That'd be lovely.
Got one here from Dave Morgan, says, if you hadn't made it as a pro, what job would you have liked to have done?
So when I grew up, I always wanted to be a professional footballer first and foremost. So that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I thought I was destined to do, and I felt that was the sport that I was the best at. But I was pretty good at a lot of sports, and so if I hadn't have made it as a footballer, my next attempt at a career would have been as a cricketer. So I loved my cricket when I was growing up, and I was a pretty decent batsman. I could keep wicket, I could bowl a bit as well if I wasn't keeping wicket, and that would have been my next choice. But I think, given the way that I was brought up and how my life went and what I was good at in life, whatever job that I was going to be involved in, it would have been sport related.
Cool. Okay, that last question before we go.
Another one from Isabella says, was you a manager's dream during training or a manager's nightmare?
Very easy answer to that. I was a manager's dream whenever there was a football around. Yeah. When they took the footballs away, I was a manager's nightmare. I did not enjoy training without a football. It was not my favourite. So for the first 2 or 3 weeks of pre-season every year, I was an absolute pain in the arse to my coaches and my managers because I would not shut up moaning.
I know
shouting the whole time. Can we get the balls out? Get the balls out!
there's an extra on YouTube of you training. There's probably about 20 players running around, and all of a sudden you just veer off to the right and get a ball and just smash it in the goal.
Still, to this day, I can't walk past a football and not kick it. My daughter's got a netball that sits around, like floats around the house at different points, and if I happen to walk past it, I've got to just flick it up and keep it up a couple of times, and then just flick it, just for some habit.
Yeah, Matt, this has just been amazing, mate. I want to just thank you very much for coming on.
You're welcome, mate.
It's such an honour to speak to you, mate.
Really,
my pleasure.
Really is indeed. And when we gonna? In fact, last question: when are we gonna see the Matt Le Tissier statue outside St Mary's?
Yeah, and they tend to save them for after you've departed this earth. So.
Yeah, so not too soon.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah. Again, I just want to echo what Billy said. Again, thank you for coming on. Been a pleasure. I'm sure everyone else in the comment section has enjoyed it as well. Loads of questions have come through. Loads of people have been watching as well. So thank you for coming on and sharing your experiences.
No problem, guys. You're very welcome. All the best to you. And I hope you're both your teams stay up like mine this season.
Thank you. Good luck, mate.
Cheers.